launching in 7 new states. Will be in a total of 12. And we also launched a new brand called Project ID, uh, which really came out of the fact that as we've been going around and getting IDs for eligible voters, we've come across a ton of people who aren't eligible to vote, largely people whose excuse me, rights weren't restored. So, for instance, we were in Florida where up until January 8th, was it? There were 1.4 million returning citizens whose rights weren't restored, and they really needed IDs as well. And we wanted to be able to get IDs for everyone who needs them, whether they could vote or not. So we launched a new brand to do that.
So what's the difference between Spread the Vote and Project ID then?
So, essentially, we're doing a lot of the same work on the ground. We're still getting IDs for folks, and if they're eligible to vote, registering them to vote, getting them to the polls. The difference is now we can also get IDs for people who are not eligible to vote.
So, get IDs for people who are not now. Once they get the IDs, will they then be eligible, or
Well, so it depends.
it
So,
depends,
for
right?
instance, we work with a lot of folks who, are formerly incarcerated. They're reentering society.
Mhm.
It may be a year, a couple years, depending on their sort of parole situation before they're eligible to vote. But they
But at
still need
least,
IDs
but
to
they
get
still have the
jobs.
ID.
Right. You still need an ID for a job, for housing, whatever. We work with we're in a lot of high schools in places like Texas, and we went because students can't vote with their student IDs. But then we were only working with kids who were going to be 18 by election, and we had a lot of kids coming to us who were 16, and they're like, I need to work to support my family or this or that, and they couldn't afford IDs either. And so, we wanted to be able to help those folks as well. And then, yeah, for the vast majority of the people we're working with, they will be able to vote at some point in the future, and then they'll have the ID we need, and they're in our records, and we'll call them up, and say you're eligible now.
So there's Spread the Vote.
Mm-hmm.
So how can people find Project ID? Where is it?
ProjectID.org.
ProjectID.org, SpreadTheVote.org.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We
Yep.
got them both. Now, do you know yet how many people you're responsible, Spread the Vote is responsible for enabling the vote, for being able to get them to vote this past November?
So we will know later this year. So every state releases their sort of voting records at a different point. And mostly by early spring they'll all be out. So we know. So we have the numbers for. Or most of the numbers we're still gathering from how many people sort of we personally took, but when we are able to pull all the voting rolls, then we'll have all of them, so we'll be able to say. But it'll be, I think the last date, it's mid to late March that they come out with the numbers, so we'll know then.
And so you have an idea then. But you feel your numbers suggest y'all made a pretty big impact, I guess, huh?
Yeah, I think so. We definitely got a lot of first time voters to the polls. We definitely, I think particularly in our early years, we're focusing on local elections where the margins of victories are smaller. And so the great thing about midterms is that it's almost all local elections
Yeah, that's
because
right.
Congress is all,
Right.
I'm in separate districts. And so we did feel really good. We were able to, bring out voters and partner with, very local grassroots orgs to, rent shuttle buses and get people out and, Albany, Georgia, and Austin, and et cetera. So we felt really good about it.
There are an estimated 235,714,420 eligible voters in the U.S. I'm looking at the
That's quite
website.
exact. Yes.
Right?
Yes.
About 5 in 10 of those eligible voters did not cast a ballot in the 2018 midterms. So, and so why is that? Because of ID a lot of times?
Partially because of ID. There are actually a lot of reasons. So one of the things that we are, constantly trying to help people understand is that there's a huge difference between voter registration and voter turnout. We actually don't have a huge voter registration problem in this country. Nationwide, around 80%, give or take, depending on the state, of folks who are eligible to vote are registered. But 55 to 65, again, depending on the state, actually show up to vote. And so there's sort of millions and millions and millions of people who are in that gap. And there are a lot of reasons that they don't. Sometimes it's voter ID, it's, transportation, there's a lot of just basic civic education. So there are a ton of reasons why you have so many eligible voters, many of whom, the vast majority of whom are registered, who don't actually turn out to vote.
Okay, folks. So again, Spread the Vote doing important and urgent work, trying to pretty much eliminate this problem.
Yes.
And we've talked about this before. Many of us philosophically do not agree with this whole voter ID movement anyway. But as long as it's there, while we may rail against it, we don't have much of a choice but to try to help people get them.
We don't. And I mean, we had another case this fall of another state, North Carolina, where the state Supreme Court had struck down voter ID laws and said these are blatantly racist, where the Supreme Court of the United States didn't take up the case there, and affirmed the state Supreme Court's decision, saying these are just incredibly racist laws.
Mm-hmm.
So they put it on the ballot, and it's now, in the Constitution of North Carolina that, voter ID laws are still stand. So we're seeing in almost every state. Pennsylvania, I think, was the only state that was successful in sort of fighting off these laws judicially. That no matter how hard we're trying to fight these laws in the courts, no matter how hard we're trying to sort of lobby against them, they're finding ways to pass them everywhere. And we've got 34 states that have voter ID laws, and they're not getting rejected yet. And the hope is that, of course, the more that we increase the electorate and the more that people turn out who vote in their interests, that we'll vote for people who will rescind these laws, or perhaps we'll get a Congress that will pass another Voting Rights Act. But until then, people are going to need IDs to vote. They just are.
866-99 Sirius listeners, what is the state of your ID? And what do you think about this issue? And if you need help with it, if you know people who need help, you should let us know. Call Cat Calvin right now, 866-99 Sirius, 866-997-4748. Is there a degree of embarrassment for individuals around this issue sometimes?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So I'll actually tell you something that happened to me yesterday.
Okay.
We went out to dinner with some of our team members and volunteers who are here in New York. And then went back to the hotel, and I got to my room and could not find my driver's license anywhere. No idea where it is. Now, I very stupidly and irresponsible keep them in a back pocket of my phone, because I know if I lose something, I could pretty easily replace it, so I don't have to think about it too hard. So I had no idea where it is, and I'm sort of panicking. I'm like, shoot, I have a flight tomorrow, etc. But then I realized, I have my passport. I always have my passport.
Okay.
And so then I was like, whatever. I chilled. I turned on Game of Thrones. I go on the DMV website. And then I saw, all right, well, it's like $35 cost to replace it. Fine. I start to fill out the online form. The front desk calls me. Someone picked up my ID in the lobby. There it is.
Okay.
That situation and every step of that does not happen for our clients. If they lose their ID, they don't have a passport backup, right? They don't have a quick and easy way to get it. They don't have access to the internet largely. So going on the internet and then having access to a computer to go on the DMV site is incredibly difficult. They don't have the $35 that they can easily pay to replace it. They're not losing their ID in a place where someone's not just going to pick it up off the floor and turn it in, but then where a front desk receptionist is going to call and say, we'll hold it for you, right?
Yeah.
So it was such a stark reminder of how very, very different most of our situations are from our clients who are sleeping rough, or they're sleeping in shelters, or they're, or they've had their ID taken while they're in jail, or this or that, and replacing it. I had 30 pretty low stress minutes of not having my ID. That would have been months, years sometimes that we work with people who can't replace an ID from that simple situation of just losing it. And that's causes so much heartache and shame and challenges and everything that people have to deal with that I didn't have to think about.
Yeah. And then as you talk about the circumstances that many of those folk in, many of your clients in, those are circumstances that, oftentimes they may not be very proud of anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I think anyone who hasn't been in a time of their lives where they haven't needed help or they haven't been able to give themselves a hand up are very lucky. Most of us have. And it is, especially we live in a society where we're constantly told, well, if you're smart, and hardworking, then you should be able to do anything. Well, we all know that's not the case. It's just not. And so, but there's still a lot of shame attached to that,
Right.
and when you have something that's so basic, right, this little dumb plastic card with your picture on it that you need for everything, and you can't get even that, so that then you can't start your life over, it causes a lot of of shame, of guilt, not being able to take care of your family. Just, you're just stuck. And that's why, over and over again, when we get people IDs, they say, I'm a person again. Because you're not a person without an ID.
866-99 Serious. People were obviously circulating a lot of Dr. King quotes and videos yesterday, and one of the ones that went most viral was when he said, talked about, alluding to something you just said, people pulling themselves up by their own bootstraps. He said, well, most of us didn't even get the boot in the first place to even pull the bootstrap up. So this is important work, and as we said in the past, so we appreciate when Kat comes in to make these points and to stress them. And there are some things that the rest of us can do to help you do your work to get people these IDs.
Yes, absolutely.
Correct?
Yes.
Tell everybody what they need to be doing.
So
especially if you didn't do nothing yesterday. Yesterday was not supposed to be a day off, sleeping, eating food, eating ice cream, and watching the game. It was supposed to be a day on. So if you checked out yesterday, you can check back in today doing exactly what Kat is about to tell you to do.
Yes. Don't be like our president and vice president who had a clear schedule yesterday. That was pretty remarkable.
Right. Well, he had clear schedule. He don't.
Yeah, that's true.
They say he don't even come up into the Oval Office till like 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Well, because he's got to watch all that Fox.
Watch all the Fox
He's got
news.
a lot of TV to watch.
And keep the government shut down.
Oh God. So there's a couple of things you
McDonald's.
can do. And for Clemson, we're not going to get into that. So if you live in one of our 9, soon to be 12. First of all, if you're in Arkansas, South Carolina, or Kansas, we are trying to hire state directors. So go to spreadthevote.org/jobs because we would like to hire someone amazing in those states and get them launched. If you're in any of our states, you can go to spreadthevote.org/volunteer and check out. We've got a list of our states, and you can see sort of where our chapters are. If we don't have a chapter in your area, we'd love to, and we'd love to have you volunteer. If you are not in one of our states, or if you are, we of course would love for you to donate. Spreadthevote.org/donate. Our average ID cost is $40 per person. It ranges. We do pay for things like if someone has fines or fees that block them from having an ID. So for instance, if you're homeless and you're sleeping on a park bench, a police officer will give you a ticket, and then you can't get an ID unless you pay that, say, $200 ticket.
That's why we call it a poll tax.
Yes, it's a poll tax. We've criminalized homelessness, we've criminalized poverty, and we've made it almost impossible to get out. And so we know if we don't help them pay those fines, then they're never going to be able to pay them. They're never going to be able to get an ID, because you need an ID to get a job to pay the fine, right? So our average cost of an ID is $40, but we do help with those fines and fees, etc. So you can go to spreadthevote.org/donate. And also, a huge help is if you follow us on social media and help share the message. We try to share stories. People don't understand yet how challenging it is to have an ID and people's stories. So you can follow us on Twitter at SpreadTheVote US or Project ID US, and we're always trying to share these stories, and we're also working a lot this year to do civic education year round, so we're not just teaching people how to vote a week before the election. So follow us and retweet, do all the things,
do all the social media things,
spreadthevote.org.
$40, folks. $40. You can give that in memory of Dr. King. What would he have done? What would he have said about this? I think he would have supported Mike Pence said he would have supported building the wall. Dr. King.
Oh, God, that makes me physically ill.
You think Dr. King would have supported building the wall, or would he have supported spreadthevote.org? I think we all know the answer to that question. Spreadthevote.org, very important work that they're doing. Don't, just because you have an ID, don't assume everybody else has one, okay? I wonder how many of these federal government workers who are shut down without jobs and paychecks have literally the main ID, or maybe the only ID, is that federal government ID.
Yeah, so the people who
or any work ID for that matter.
Yeah, I'm most concerned about. I think most federal workers probably have IDs, but what people forget is that a lot of the work done for the federal government is contractors, and not just military contractors, but all of the janitorial services, all of the services that are really minimum wage jobs and that are being done by workers. They're by subcontractors, and when you lose your job, especially when you're not making enough money for any sort of savings, when you're already barely getting by, we often have people who lost their ID at some point in the past, but were already working, right? And so then when they lose their job, all of a sudden they don't have what they need in order to get another one. And those are the folks who are getting laid off right now because contractors don't get back pay.
Right.
So the most vulnerable people who work in the federal government system, they're already losing their jobs. They're already losing everything.
Spreadthevote.org, projectid.org. Good to see you. Thanks for coming in.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Anytime you're in town, come in.
I will.
Or invite me out to L.A.
Please come out to LA. It's so much warmer.
Brittany and I want to go out to L.A. and do the show from out there sometime, too. So
that'd be great.
just let us know. They're building us a new studio out there, too.
Ooh.
Yeah, so we can do some stuff.
Let's do it.
All right. Thank you, folks. Spreadthevote.org, projectid.org. We'll be back live on the radio, Sirius XM Progress 127. Resistance Radio. Get woke. Get ready for impeachment. This is MIP.